exempt. Advance refundings may come back. Those are currently not allowable under federal law, but you would, at least in 8 years, and I'll get into that more on the timing in a moment.
Thank you. Okay, on to 9A2.
Just on the bid award, and whatnot, I'll hand it.
Thank you,
Kevin.
by the way.
Yeah, it was great.
That was exactly what we're looking for.
I don't know if Ash or Steve want to try to walk through the alternates or just describe this, but this is the same information that was in the council packet previously. We did try to go through, there's a fair amount of alternatives that we just would need to walk through. I guess the first decision is, for the council, would be, do you support any of these options? Because we have to either thumbs up or thumb down on these bids tonight. If you do support it, then we can walk through each alternative and answer questions specific to them, and we have some recommendations in here. So I guess maybe without kind of walking through everything we've talked about a couple times, is maybe you guys have the conversation about whether you support a project, and then if that's the case, we can dive into the alternate details a little bit more.
Okay, sounds good. So where is everyone on big picture of this? It's maybe the biggest decision we've had for us. Dean?
Biggest, but not the hardest.
Might be a silly question, but I'll leave that up to all you guys. The difference between domestic and non-domestic fittings, is there any proof that non-domestic is inferior to domestic fittings?
We've run into, in generally speaking, we've run into, an occasional issue with non-domestic, or historically it kind of ebbs and flows. We feel like it's a little more unpredictable, which is why for the tower, we don't see the value in the savings for going non-domestic. The specific to the specialty made products in the treatment plant, and correct me if I'm saying this, and the value of almost $1 million, we feel like that's worth the chance, because if a part fails, we can replace that for that $1 million in a scenario where it fails out of warranty prematurely. We feel like the value is there where we're still coming ahead because of the significance and the value. So, and because they're more specially made individual products, they're not mass produced. They may not be, lost at sea for 2 years or whatever happens. Right? They're specially made for this facility, so hands are on them straight to Corcoran. They are not exchanged anywhere else. So for those reasons, we feel like the value is there in that exception.
Okay.
And I think that would be supported by engineering.
Kevin's corner.
Thank you. You may have answered that question once before. I all of a sudden got a deja vu moment.
No, that's a great question. That's our policy. It's made in America is our standard spec. That would be an exception. We require all developments to do that. And that was a struggle that we had. That was one of the things that delayed the original bid, was we were getting significant feedback that there was a huge price savings. So we delayed the bid a week to be able to add that alternative in. So I give kudos to the engineering team that recognized that potential cost savings and value.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thanks for letting me ask that.
Of course. Regarding the tower itself, so the staff recommendation would be the million gallon composite tank, so that would be including the base bid site for the site work and alternate A would be the staff recommendation.
I believe so, yes. We just think that the value is there on the upsizing. So basically, staff recommendation is the 2 upsizing options for each of the sites, just because of that value that you gain by that incremental change. And so we would recommend, you probably said this, but we would recommend base, site work, alternate A, and alternate A. Correct?
Base site work, alternate A.
Alternate B, which is, sorry.
You're correct.
Yeah. Base bid site work and alternate A is what staff recommends. We don't recommend the, $6,000 credit for allowing non-domestic. So base bid and alternate A for the water tower is staff recommendation.
Can I make a motion?
Go for it.
Can I just say we would recommend that you, if you do a tower, we want you to do the treatment plant. Just at a side.
Understood.
Build a tower to nowhere.
I don't have treatment at my house.
Just a personal, run a personal line out there. Hook a hose up.
Yeah, I just want to,
I appreciate that.
No trust from Kevin.
Were you born in Wisconsin? I'll make a motion approve, based on staff recommendations.
Second.
With the guidance of
Beat me to it. Okay.
Hold on, so that's a little vague. What about the SCADA integration items?
That's on
treatment?
treatment.
Or are we not doing?
We're just doing tower.
You're
That's
just
why,
doing tower
that's why
on-
Kevin's joke hit home for suggesting we do the treatment if we should do the tower. That'll
Okay.
come next.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I feel that John should have made a motion on the treatment plan first, but that's fine.
You're right. This will all fall apart really bad if we don't do the treatment center.
Well, we could vote no
I have
on
a
it.
heck of a nice water tower.
Raise the question. All the,
Can I move to table the motion until we finish with the treatment plant?
I can do a
withdraw the
friendly-
motion
I'll
to
withdraw
be-
the motion.
easier if we're concerned about that.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Draw, or,
You gotta withdraw the second.
Dean?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Just for a moment.
I don't understand all of that, but I'll withdraw.
Well, we're in the same pickle, because if we
We're all
do a
right.
treatment center,
Or we can do
we
it.
better do it to water tower.
Well-
So like,
Let's
We
talk about
should
the
have
more
done the
expensive
treatment
item
first.
I think I can navigate that part.
Okay,
Regarding treatment,
I'll catch up, I'm sorry.
regarding treatment, staff recommendation, as Kevin outlined, was to do base bid item. So is it 1 and 2?
so this one's a little different, so maybe I'll walk through it. So it's base bid 1 and 2, so that 50,000 is just a general allocation for us to make, you know, in real time, we might not be able to make a council meeting, so it's like a allowance for small items. We bring any of those back to you in advance, so it allows us to keep the project moving. If we want to add an electrical light for $100 or whatever, we can do that. We would bring any of those changes back to you, so it just expedites the type of project, and you would be authorized. It's set up for me to do that through the contract, so it's kind of like the city hall remodel where the council gave the city administrator authority on small change orders with the intention to immediately bring that to council for notification. And it's capped at 50,000 unless, you know, we'd have to ask for more, but
Makes sense.
we would bring that immediately. And if we could bring it in advance of approval, we would. So it's only under the exceptions where it's needed before we could bring it to council.
Gotcha.
So,
Does the bid amount include contingency also?
Yeah.
what's that?
Do the bid amounts include contingency also? Because 50,000 seems like a pretty small overrun allocation for a project of this
Contingency is
size.
built into the base.
I don't think there's a contingency bid in the price. We would have, if there was a significant change above that, we would bring a change order and get that approved. That would be the contractual method.
Okay.
For an add or a deduct, if we have, it could go, a change order can go either way. This just allows us to potentially make that authorization for small items if we can't, if there's a bonus week and it's a critical thing that we catch. And then we would authorize it on my behalf, and then I would come and explain the thing. We would be tied to my decision under this contract, but, you know, it's recommended to do that just for efficiencies of the project. Instead of slowing down the project, there could be more delays if you slow it down. So it is some trust in me to make value-based decisions. My intention is value-based decisions, not the cheapest, not the Cadillac, value-based decisions. This is our methodology through the whole project, and we'll continue to do that in the construction phase if you move forward.
Question? I'm sorry, I
No.
don't think I'd ever hear myself ask this. Is 50,000 enough?
I think it's enough for what we're trying to accomplish, yes. And like, we'll deal with it, but you know, I think that's the recommendation that we had, and I think that should cover us under most scenarios. Like I said, we're only gonna use this if we have to.
Yep.
Like, I will bring change order, if we know a change order and we have a month, we'll bring the change order to you guys to get it pre-approved. This is only under scenarios where it's small items, where we're doing a walkthrough of electrical and we missed something and I got authorized 1,500 because we want a light there and it was missed for whatever reason, or we want to add one because we're standing there and it makes sense. So it's just these small items that we can't wait 2 to 3 weeks to get approval on is what it's intended for.
Understood. Thanks.
So getting back to the mayor's question, so staff recommendation would be, this is a little different than the other one, it would be bid item 1 and 2. It would also be alternate item 4, which is the upsizing to the 3 cell. It would be to integrate lift station SCADA. That would be funded out of sewer budget, so not water. We'd take that line item, 184,000, and fund that through sewer. That would be staff's recommendation, because it's really integrating the lift stations to the control center at the site. So right now, it would improve our abilities to manage everything, so we're capitalizing on that opportunity, and sewer would fund that specific line item as the proposal. We would propose alternate 7, the SCADA integration for the water tower. And we do recommend item, that was item 7, alternate item 7, and then we do recommend, it would be items 8 and 9 for the 2 cell and the 3 cell. And then the discussion that we completely left up to the council is related to the architectural dormers. It's not functional, it's the architectural element. It can work either way. And to Councilman Bottom's point, I'm not an architect, so that's completely up to you guys. So that would be what we'd ask for you between alternate item 3 and 5 if you wanted the dormers. We would recommend you consider 5 or not 5 under that scenario because we're recommending the 3 cell. So does that, I'll summarize, base bid 1, base bid 2,
Alt 4,
alternate bid 4.
6, 7.
You'd have a discussion on alternate bid 5, alternate 6, 7, 8, and 9 is the recommendation.
Gotcha. Okay, do we want to start on the 2 cell, 3 cell discussion? And then essentially the architectural dormers? Any thoughts on that, separate from?
Can we
recommendation.
just make a motion?
Yep.
Can I make a motion to approve staff recommendations and leave everything you said, but this motion does not include the dormers.
Okay.
I'd second that.
My expectation is somebody puts forward a motion on the dormers.
And do that afterwards? And
Yes, and I will.
Which we could do. Yeah.
We
Concede
could
to the
certainly do that.
majority on that.
Okay. So yeah, let's decide everything else first, and then we can have a
So
vote on
my
that.
motion is what Kevin said.
Which is base bid 1, 2, alternate 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Yep, and take out the dormers.
Yes.
Yep, would be a
Not
separate,
include any
separate vote.
language on the dormers.
Yeah, under
Yep.
that scenario you just read, there's no dormer discussion at all. You would have to choose to add in 5 afterwards.
That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we're gonna do
I think we're gonna have a
Or
separate vote on that
Somebody else
after.
is gonna have to make that motion.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so we have a motion. I will second that. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. What's the anticipated growth schedule to get us to the need for the 3rd cell? And we talked about it, but can you remind me? There's a trigger point.
Yeah, I don't know, I'd have to look at the numbers. It really allows some flexibility if you have a big water user that comes in. You know, basically, we're not fitting, we're setting it up, but it's not plumbed.
Right,
There's,
yeah.
you know.
No, I get
Yeah,
that, but
so
at
it-
some point, there's a trigger that we have to install it, right?
Yep, it would be based on
Yep.
when you got a certain number of homes. I think Ash is trying to look up that tipping point.
It's not the whole church edition, is it? 25% of our population? and-
No, I think it's the, if I had to remember, I think it's the magenta in the first phase
Love
of
it.
use.
That was so
Generally
cool.
aligned with the 2025 phasing
Yeah.
plan. It's just when does the 24, your question is when does that 25 actually get to complete build out? And I don't know if there's a good assumption of how long it takes.
We wouldn't have to build it until
10 years
it happened.
Yeah.
If we have to build it that fast, it means we've got a
We have
lot
the
of
money to do
development
it.
coming in, and that means the development, that the money will be there in cash to pay for it.
Right.
But yeah, that's part of the risk, that we're way on the low end of the risk.
So
And why we wanted to have the alternates was
Yeah.
I'm almost as
Three
nervous
cell.
of coming faster.
What you sell?
And we are looking at an expansion before it's even
Okay.
operational. Now, that's the optimistic approach, but that's why we want the three,
Okay.
so we can try to set the middle
Construction
ground
costs would be way more than
as much as
2.4
possible.
million,
There's a
probably.
scenario each way that
That's
is,
what they had it
it's the
as
bell
for
curve,
that,
right?
so.
We're trying to hit the 90% of the bell curve with this design.
Oh, to build that on later?
Yeah, to add it on
Perfect.
later would be
I
way
think
more than
it- I think it would be a
2.4
lot
million.
more, yeah. Okay, so we did have a motion and a second.
Yep, and we
Have a
did
discussion.
have Barrenkamp actually second earlier.
Oh,
Just-
cool,
just
that
so you
works
know.
too.
I jumped quick, but I don't need the credit. Give it to Todd.
That work, whatever's fine. Okay, anything else on that? Otherwise, we'll have the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, carries 5-0. Discussion, does anyone want to have the discussion on the architectural dormers, or?
I will move to adopt alternate bid item 5.
Okay, do we have a second? I'll second it.
Can we see a picture?
Give me just a moment. I'll have to, don't know that I have any handy in the.
I tore the dormers off my house, so I just tell you
Give me
how
just
I
a
feel
moment.
about it.
Fair enough.
It was a cupola, actually.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that, because I took
You have
one
to
off
keep
my
the other
house
ones,
and
I
put it on my
know,
barn.
The July 14th meeting has them, so if you give me just a moment.
Sure.
No, she's got it.
Otherwise, I know we had it for the work session. for the-
That's the width, right?
Yeah, these are the dormers.
That's the 2-cell?
This is probably riveting watching for anyone at home.
Well, that's what I'm like, I'm
I
trying to figure
know,
out
yeah,
if I
that's-
can,
Oh, here's 3 cell, there you go.
Okay. And maybe we could show people the one without as well.
I don't even know what dormers are.
It's
so-
the thing on top.
These are the window guys.
That's where Chucky looks out at you.
Yeah.
Can you show without?
Um,
Do you have that handy? If not, it's not a big deal.
I mean, the back side of the building looks good.
The concern was it's a really long, big building, especially as you get
Yeah.
out to
So like the
5-cell.
back side shows
Yep.
that without,
Yeah.
and that side is with.
Okay.
To me, it doesn't add the 100,000 worth of value.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
My issue is it's above the water and such, and we start creating the chance of the roof leaking at those dormers and such. There's no windows up there.
I thought it was the cupola.
We don't want that.
It was the cupola.
Well, anything you put on a roof.
Yeah.
Cupola dormers, the more valleys you've got, the more chances of leaking, and that's why I would vote no, so.
Gotcha. We have a motion and a second on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No. Nay. That's
And
4-1.
I concede
Or,
to the majority.
oh, I'm sorry. The one time I didn't
So
like
that's a nay?
specifically
It's not a
check.
nay, yeah, my concession to the majority makes my vote a nay rather than an abstention.
Just say no.
Take a stand, man.
No, I don't have, I am unopinionated
Yeah, I
about
think-
it, but I respect the
So do you-
decision of the rest of the
How does she
council.
So are you
recorded.
voting, are you okay with voting no for the record?
Yeah,
Okay. So, 4-1, Nichols voted in the affirmative.
This meeting would be shorter if we just could figure out how you vote.
that's exactly how I vote. I explained it. I don't have an
Okay.
opinion, but I respect these guys' opinion. When I abstain, I have no opinion and don't want my vote to carry any weight.
What happened if we split?
Then it would not carry.
Yeah, true.
there's no
You're right.
majority.
You're right.
I move that we proceed with the alternate A million-gallon composite tank.
And,
Second.
hold on 1 second. Can
I'll hold my
friendly
second.
amendment to include the site work for that project?
Is that on?
It's a base bid site work and alternate A was the
Yes.
staff recommendation.
I accept the change.
Okay, so we have a motion by Nichols, second by Varenkamp.
Second again.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 5-0.
And just clarification, we want the
To the,
lift station SCADA out of the sewer fund
yes.
as
That
recommended.
that
by
was
staff.
my understanding of.
Everything you recommended.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you, and good job. This is a huge, exciting project. I think we've done a good job of mitigating as much risk as possible from it. So,
No, just the lift.
good job, everyone.
It will
I hope.
forever change the face of the city.
Yep. It's a big deal.
No more discussions like we had earlier tonight.
Tammy, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All of you guys.
All y'all.
All y'all. Where are they
Okay.
going? How come I can't leave?
We don't have too much.
You can,
we
yeah,
don't
we
have
still
too
have-
much left to do, but we have the bonds, we have the tax abatement.
I don't know if,
public
I don't know if you want to
hearing,
make that
there's a
quote.
We're still on 9A3.
Yeah, we still
Yeah, we
gotta
have-
buy the property to put all
We
this
do,
stuff on.
Yes.
yes. We do need to do a couple things related to the water tower.
Regarding 9A3, does anyone have any questions on that?
I would just note, we did have a minor change from the city attorney on
Yes.
your dais for resolution 2311. And then if you do have specific questions about the financing agreement, that is something that came late last week. So if you have specific questions on there, ask. We did try to mitigate any issues with that financing agreement as well.
Any questions?
Where are we at? Are we on 8?
9A3, the water tower purchase agreement. I'll entertain a motion to authorize the mayor and city administrator to execute the First Amendment to the purchase agreement and authorize mayor and city administrator to execute the financing agreement and adopt or approve resolution 2023-11, authorizing closing on the sale of certain real property.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
9B,
Excellent.
which we do have a public hearing for.
Yes. So, thank you, Mayor and Council. If you're comfortable, we could open the public hearing and can talk a little bit about tax abatement. Today in front of you, we do have a tax abatement public hearing related to our tax abatement bonds. We do have to hold a public hearing because of the type of bonds that we're using for our projects. So we'd recommend opening the hearing and then taking any comment, and then
Perfect.
if there are any items that you have questions on, we could discuss those.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have any?
Anyone joining us in the audience can come to the podium, state your name and address. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 or click reactions and raise your hand. Mayor and council, at this time, there's no one
Okay.
virtually.
I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to the item itself.
Perfect. In front of you today, we do have a resolution approving the property tax abatement for the city, for the tax abatement portion of the bonds. I would note there's a long list of properties identified with this. It's one of the requirements of having tax abatement bonds is that you outline those properties, which will help pay for those bonds. So that's what we have attached tonight. I would note this list is a bit larger than what we would actually need, but we did have to put out a list in advance of the, in advance of the meeting. So we just ask that you go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt that resolution.
Okay, any questions? No? I'll entertain a motion to adopt or approve resolution 2023-9, approving property tax abatement in the city of Corcoran for certain public infrastructure improvements.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
On to 9C, setting sale of the 2023A bonds.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have Tammy Amdahl here as well to talk a bit about the bond sale and the financing plan for the bonds. I would note one thing I noted in the staff report is that with the park remaster, not having final numbers for those, staff is initially proposing removing those bonds since we don't know the costs of that park improvement. That is not currently in the financing plan. We certainly could add that if council would like us to direct us to.
I would say also, we don't know the cost of what we potentially need to bond for the park, and if we're waiting whatever X amount of time, we should have more park dedication money in there as well, so that would be less of a bond
Yes.
for that too, so.
And we just agreed to the biggest bond sale in the history of our town.
Not yet.
Well, we agreed to build the things.
Well, yes, but, yeah, that's a good point. Okay,
If you're comfortable,
any
I can
dis-
have Tammy go over
Yeah.
a brief presentation of the bonds if you would like.
sure.
Other ways we could move the resolution forward if whatever is
What's everyone's comfort level?
council is comfortable with.
She can give us a 30,000-foot view.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't know, and I thought we had talked about having the call feature, and I thought that it was said we couldn't have the call feature like 2 months ago.
I think we can't prior to that 8 years.
That-
Yeah,
that
but
was-
I thought it was no call. So that changed my whole perspective on we don't need to get that creative. It sort of is what it is.
Yeah,
And
gotcha.
the market will determine what rate we get when they go to auction. So for me, it seems straightforward, so, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Want to give us a real brief overview?
Well, I have about 10 slides, but they're not very detailed. I'll move quickly, Jessica, if you can get going. So Jessica was saying the park's not included. There's 4 portions included. The first one was what you just acted on with water supply. The other 3 are being issued under tax abatement authority, and the reason is that the assessments aren't at a level that it would allow you to use a different authority. I won't go into what tax abatement means because you just approved that. And then the bonds, as I mentioned when I was going over the scenarios for the treatment plan, comes with the general obligation pledge. So meaning if revenues weren't sufficient, the city is pledging its full faith and credit. In addition to the plan is that, and the expectation that water system revenues will pay entirely for the $21.6 million portion, and the rest coming from levy. If you can go to the next one, Jess. So the bonds will mature in February 1 each year until 2053. I'll get into the call in a moment. The water portion is structured over 30 years. If development occurs faster and you get to that call date and you haven't used that money for other projects, you would be able to call in those outstanding maturities at that point. The tax abatement portions for the street are structured over a shorter period, 10 to 15 years. All of this was included in the long-term plan, and I went through those scenarios. If you could go to the next slide. Right now, and we, based upon current rates as the 11 in Minnesota bond rates, plus 0.75%, we estimate for planning purposes the rate at 4.85%. So what that means is, at least as of January 11th, you would have done 3/4 better than what that current plan is. So we're being conservative in that. If you can go to the next slide, please. So here's just showing you for, and we're using the bond buyers index, this is 2023. You can see back in 2019, when the city was also issuing bonds, rates were higher back then than where we are now. Certainly, we're not down here at those historic rates, and if you can go to the next slide. This is a longer-term look at municipal bond rates, and you can see in 2023 where we're at. And you go back to year 2000, when cities were also issuing bonds to finance projects. So certainly, money is not as cheap as it was, but it is still relatively low in comparison to prior periods. If you go to the next slide. Here I ran a scenario for you, because we don't know what rates are. The council member's point, the finance plan is based upon this, which the tax levy portion, then that's about $405,000 a year. Scenario 2, if it came in where current rates are at without that cushion, it'd be at $382 for the levy portion. And what happens if rates dropped between now and when these bonds are actually sold by 3/4? You'd be at $360. Yes, those are savings, but those aren't huge material amounts to make a difference in the city's long-term finance plan. If you can go to the next slide, please. Here is the repayment term. So in 2032, on February 1, 2031, that is when you'd have the option to call in either all or a portion of the outstanding bonds at par. So there's no premium on that. So if you have cash, you can call them in. Let's just say rates are really low at that period. You could current refund them, or between now and then you can do what's called a taxable advance refunding. But for that to work, rates would really have to come down from what these are projected to be issued at. If you can go to the next slide, please. Here I just wanted to show you on rating, and these bonds are proposed that the city will be going out for rating. Your current rating is the AA3, and I just wanted to share with you for the cities that Moody's rates, 124 cities, how you compare. Those are Minnesota rated cities on the far right column. This is as of August 2022. This list changes. Moody's recently changed their methodology. We have been seeing some Minnesota cities get an upgrade under that new methodology. That's possible. For Corcoran, we won't know until these bonds are actually rated. So that is a comparison to other cities. If you go to the next slide. The tax abatement authority that you approved, I would just note that those parcels that are listed in the resolution that was authorized, those parcels, their tax statements are no different than any other tax statements, or will be in the city. The levies that the city will make to service these bonds will be spread over the city's entire tax base, the same as your general levy, the same as your existing debt service levy. The tax abatement authority is simply the mechanism that it's allowed under state law for you to issue bonds for this type of project where there is no other type of authority. If you can go on. The water revenue portion, again, net revenues are pledged to that, and we're projecting will be sufficient to pay those bonds back in their entirety. And the next one, bond sale is scheduled for March 23rd. I would note when we schedule this, we know that that is close to when the Fed's open market committee is meeting. We are watching that. It's possible that depending if we think it's appropriate, we would recommend to staff to move that sale date. At this point, we don't think that will be necessary, but I would note that. As planned, we would take bids at 10 a.m. and that evening, it's a regular meeting day to the council. You would be presented those bids that evening for your consideration for approval. The resolution that Jess will ask you to consider in a moment, I would note that is an amount that upon your direction or direction of your staff could be adjusted. This is an approximate amount, meaning, for example, while I don't believe the timing is such that you're going to add additional dollars for the park improvements, I would note you have that flexibility. Same goes with reducing it. For some reason between now and when we get ready to sell those bonds, that amount could be adjusted. Don't expect that to happen, but I just make note. Mayor, those are my comments for the
Perfect.
council.
Thank you very much.
Can I, Tammy, or can I ask
Yeah.
Tammy a question? These, I'm just curious, when we did the park and borrowed money to buy the park from Buffalo School District, Rockford School District, thank you. Did we can't use the same addresses for this one as we did that one, can we?
No.
Great question.
So they're different.
No.
We're
They're
making sure
different.
that we're not using the same addresses twice.
Yes, we spent some time with Tammy putting together a map and looking at making sure that the addresses were different. We'll condense the list a bit when we get closer to it because we didn't need quite as many as the
Okay.
parcels identified.
Fair enough.
But yes, we can't use the same ones, and we were very particular about looking in areas that were newly developed because
Sure.
you can't use them again, so, for the time period, so.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilmember, with that question, I want to correct something that I said. Actually, you could not at this point add back in the parks because the tax abatement resolution that you approved, that we worked with staff and we reduced the number of parcels that were being included because the park financing wasn't going forward at this time. At a later date, when you're ready to do that, you would have that option of approving a tax abatement on those additional parcels. And you might say, well, why did you do that? we didn't want, it was roughly 300 additional parcels that you didn't need for this financing, because once you put them in there, even though you didn't need all that capacity, those were no longer available for that, 10, 15-year period of time.
My question was about, I don't know if you addressed, it doesn't matter if you addressed it, we got the answer from this side, but it was about a bond we floated to purchase the park 4 years ago.
That I understood.
Okay, okay, you're just ultra clarifying.
Yeah.
Yes, okay,
Didn't want to misspeak about it.
all right,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other discussion or questions on that? Jeremy?
I had questions on a couple of the amounts.
Okay.
Horseshoe Bend, so that was in relation to the Garages 2 project, where we had a lot of drainage issues in the neighborhood we're taking the opportunity to try to correct. I'm wondering where the 420K came from.
Good question. That's coming to you, I think, at the February 23rd meeting. We were doing a feasibility, working for some of the final data to come in from the development. So we'll be presenting the feasibility study for that project, I believe, on February 23rd. That is our current projected worst-case scenario. So one of those things we could do is, I tried to take a worst-case scenario because I'd rather lower it than add it. We can add it, but I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a projected worst-case scenario, hopefully, on that project. So there might be an opportunity for that to be half as much, and we'll go through all that on the 23rd.
Okay.
In advance of the March 23rd meeting. When we
I hope it is half as much.
Yeah.
I know when we first discussed it, Brad floated the swag of like 85K. And I know those can go up, but this seemed like a big increase.
Yeah.
And then my other question is on Hackamore, with 1.8 million. I was wondering what our total contribution is, and if there's anything else that's coming in that might cause us to reduce this further.
I would
say not
echo the
likely.
same thing. That's hopefully a conservative amount. We're in the process of finalizing those numbers here in advance of a JPA and a potential project recommendation here with Medina. So again, hopefully that's conservative and will come down. I will say, I believe the water supply will come down now with some of the alternates you approved tonight. Again, I believe, hopefully if my numbers are right, those are all the worst case, most expensive scenarios. So ideally, all of these come down a little bit from where they are. City Center Drive might be the one that comes down the least, but to your point, that was my intention when I gave the information out, was that we can knock 10, 15, 20% or maybe more off. But I didn't want to have to ask for more later, was kind of the staff thought process when we produce these numbers.
I think with Hackamore,
Their best available data, worst case numbers, hopefully.
I think with Hackamore, that number could come down. I wouldn't anticipate another project coming in between now and then, but yeah, that number, like Kevin was saying, could,
And there's some chance that the county may participate. It's not official, but there's some positive conversations about some county participation at the signal. That's not guaranteed, but I mean, that's a moving target over all this in the next 30 days will be better defined, and then we can make a recommendation at the 23rd meeting.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-10, providing for issuance and sale of approximately $26,110,000 of general obligation bonds, Series 2023A.
So moved.
I'll second it. All those, or any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Now for the real tough decision of the night. 9D, Holiday Food and Toy Drive date selection.
Hello and good evening, council members
Thanks, Dan.
and staff. We come to you again about the Holiday Toy and Food Drive, specifically 2023. I had come to you at the end of last year, kind of doing a wrap-up, but this is more focusing on what is to come. We had proposed 2 dates here. We've got December 12th, 2023 as the main date, and then a backup date of the 13th. The reason we have the back-to-back dates is to let if inevitably we get a thunderstorm in December, which seems to be a theme, we already have all of the stuff set up and all the vehicles decorated. We don't have to necessarily tear it all down so that we can use the vehicles. We can just punt it to the next day. So the other request is that we can go out and seek donations from outside sources in the community if need be. We haven't decided if that's going to be a necessity yet. We're kind of focusing on Night 2 Night right now. But if we do have to, we'd like to have the blessing in advance so that we don't have to come back to you for a third time for the same thing.
Gotcha. Any questions? I did see your email regarding volunteers, and I think we might have some leads on some people that are very interested in bellwether. So maybe we can get a contact for
See if I
for
can get
them,
a contact.
someone there. But they're looking for volunteer opportunities, so,
We would love to have
yeah,
them.
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Oh, sorry, Dean put his hand
You
up,
go.
but I spoke.
You go.
Soliciting donations from the community implies that there are costs involved in running the thing. Do you know how much it actually costs the city to do it, or is this just a hypothetical, if we need to, we'll
So-
solicit?
Yeah, so I think that's for more like the like pizza that we had.
Oh,
given
okay.
to us.
Yeah.
And then, if there comes a need that we wanna buy more lights, or if we wanna do something to, like, help pay for, I mean, that kind of
Extra.
stuff, so.
Yeah, I
So,
wasn't,
I mean, that's kind of what the donation part is for.
yeah, I wasn't there after the parade. I was out of town the next council meeting, so I never got to thank you in person for doing such a wonderful job. And Dean gave me a tree to put on my trailer that night, and it was absolutely destroyed when I got home.
So
Yeah,
as
I
were
gave you
Alan
that
and I.
2 years
Yeah,
ago.
as were
Yeah.
Tom and I.
You did use
As
that
were
fund.
we were just
Yeah.
absolutely
Yes.
freezing.
We
Yeah,
warmed up
like,
by
we are
January.
looking forward to having an alternative date so we can skip the thunderstorm. Like that
With
was
any luck.
the thing that we added this year, because the first year was completely
Yes.
out because of a tornado warning, I think it was, or something.
It was
like
bad.
that.
It was a real bad
It
storm
was like
for
50
December.
It's
degrees.
gonna be
Yeah.
crazy.
Tornado.
So we hope that the weather doesn't go back to back bad days, is kind of what that's for.
I would have held it in a tornado, but yes, we're getting soft.
Mayor and council, I would just note, we do have staff time that goes towards the event, so that wouldn't be part of the donations piece, but just a
Okay,
note,
thank you
so
for that.
folks know.
Makes sense.
Is there,
And I'll go next.
Oh, yeah, go.
I know a guy in a big red suit that'll be there either night,
Beautiful.
period.
Thank you.
It's on my calendar.
Friends in high places.
is there any thoughts of expanding it somehow, or?
For next year, or, well, this year, I guess now, I wouldn't anticipate expanding it, but for future, I mean, big picture, I'd like to see maybe like a tree lighting or something.
Yes.
Where there's a final spot that it kind of ends, rather than just City Hall and then people would drive through. It'd be nice to have a gathering. I think that'd be a stronger community engagement effort, but at this point, we don't really have like a set spot. City Park gets a little dicey because it's not a paved parking lot.
Wow.
And so with the weather that we've been having, I have a feeling everything would sink into that.
I would say longer term, either City Park could be, once we do some updates there,
Plant a tree.
could be cool.
Really nice tree.
As well as maybe City Center Drive, and there could
And
be
the
something there. I think that was,
The linear
that was thrown out at some point, was that that area'd be available for community events like tree lightings, so,
Yeah, they'll have an amphitheater.
Yeah.
Have fans and everything.
yeah. Cool.
When is that?
We're open to everything.
When St. Teresa's done?
Like, feel free to
Next year or
like,
so?
send our way. We are,
I didn't know about that.
I mean, we got a lot of positive feedback, and I really anticipate this growing bigger and bigger. So,
Yeah. There was a lot of people out, and the weather was awful, so it's a good sign.
Well, and it was the first year that we actually
Yeah.
officially ran it, so I would envision that it just continues to grow.
Yep. And the numbers were like incredibly impressive. 1,000 pounds of donated food and the $15,000 worth of toys. That's awesome.
And it should be noted, I mean, a good portion of those toys did come from the stanchion as well
Mhm.
as the Northwest Trails Association. So big thanks to them and huge
Absolutely.
kudos, but there was a lot in addition to that from the community members, and I think that's incredible.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you, good job.
I will make a motion to approve December 12th, 2023 as the planned date for the holiday food and toy drive, and December 13th as the backup date for the holiday food.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
One other thing, as far as the soliciting donations, that wasn't included in the motion.
I will make a motion to allow staff or authorize staff to solicit donations as needed for
Second.
the event. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's either that or I come back one more time, and then you guys get to see me again.
Will you bring
not
us
all
no
bad.
Starbucks again?
I will bring you Starbucks next year. If you want to email me your orders, whenever that is, I will make it.
Thanks,
all.
guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Me too. Okay, 9E, RU credit policy.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have an agenda item here, an RU credit policy. One of the things we had talked about with the new fee schedule, or the 2023 fee schedule, was adopting some methodology for doing a credit for those commercial properties that we were going to be charging the additional base fees to, because they're generally larger users of water and sewer. So in front of you today is a copy of the RU credit policy that we have drafted over the last month. We did have a couple changes from the city attorney that are in front of you in red, that get emailed out and are in front of you in red. So if you do have particular questions, Maggie put together the policy and would be happy to answer any of those.
Right. Any questions for Maggie?
Is there a motion? Accept?
It would be to approve resolution 2023-7.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do we have a second? Sure.
Second.
Perfect. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. On to new business. Public comment opportunity. For items 10A and 10B, is there anyone still online?
We do have a few people
Okay.
online.
So
So
let's
anyone
see if we
joining
have
us virtually can press *9 or click reactions and raise your hand. At this time, Mayor and Council, no one is raising their hand.
Okay, let's go into 10A.
Perfect, thank you, Mayor and Council. I would note that we did receive a request from the Northwest Trails Association to make a slight modification to the trail alignment. They would like to move the trail off the sharp corner from 116 down Shuddy to behind the trees. I did get an email today from Steve from them, and that's continues to be what they'd like to do. With the large agenda, they weren't sure how long it would be.
Fair enough.
If you do have questions, we certainly could bring it back, but they wanted to see if we'd support that, because the two parcels that they'd be going over are city-owned parcels.
Gotcha. Any thoughts on that? I think
There's no liability towards us or anything,
We-
if something were to happen.
We currently have them going over our land, so we don't anticipate any
Wouldn't be any
additional
different, yeah.
liability that we.
State law protects you from
Yeah.
liability against that.
Yep, I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Good question.
We didn't anticipate any, since we currently have the trail in our,
Yep.
going over our land.
They have trouble turning that corner with the groomer. That's the issue,
Yep.
is that
Gotcha.
it's a safety thing for the groomer.
Are
Gotcha.
you in the club?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Can
Sure.
I ask him?
Yeah.
Is it not representative, representative?
I'm a member, a paying member, but,
Okay, maybe staff can ask this. I'm all for it, but I'm actually willing to go even beyond that and move the trail off 116 further into city property.
Mhm.
This is all city property. I wouldn't be opposed to where the trail splits, that it comes across city property and joins up to Shuddy Road
Oh.
there.
And then reconnects to 116 south of there?
Yeah, and reason being is most of it is probably cattails or low grassland or farm that probably has nothing planted in it this time of year.
Yeah, there's nothing underneath it.
And it moves the trail off of a county road where I'm assuming this is I don't know if you're familiar with snowmobile trails, but most snowmobile trails are like, when you can snowmobile in the bottom of a ditch in Minnesota roads, right? But you have to go with traffic at night unless it's considered a day-night trail, in which case they move both ways. So in that regard, this is probably day-night section. So in this stretch at night, you could meet a car head-on, right? And you can see your headlight. So for safety reasons and for even more aesthetics, I would be open to allow them to move it further off and through the city property. And if they wanted to make it wind or do whatever, I'm all for it.
Anything that jumps out to staff on?
No, I mean, we didn't push back on what they asked for, so we can share that you're open to our entire property. Just looking at the map, I don't know if they would know, there's a couple, sections where, as long as they could cross.
Yeah, I mean, they generally put a bridge or something in those
Okay.
points
I
where they
don't-
can't get across.
But this is what they came to, we didn't push back at all, so we can open it up to anything in this.
Yeah, and
Those fields are the fields that we talked about before, there's nothing on them right now, those are the fields that we have to.
Could we approve this specifically and also approve?
well, I think the request was
If-
actually just to authorize staff to work with them on it, so we could
Yeah,
just
so
do
we
it
could
with that
approve.
direction.
Yep, with your direction, we could work
Yeah.
on allowing it through our entire property along 160.
So that, it's not as if tomorrow they're gonna move all their trails and
Right.
stuff, cause they, like any other organization, don't
Yeah.
do the speed of light,
It'd
but
probably be for.
they might move it off, they actually might move it off the ditch, because, you've got salt that goes from the road into the ditch, and it melts the trail, so that
Yeah.
ruins the trail.
Yeah.
And
Probably
so-
won't the next week, but,
They-
but
yeah.
when it's warmer than 0.
Well, yeah, but they could move, 10 feet off,
Yeah.
and it would be nice.
It's fine by me. I'll make a motion to authorize staff to work with the Northwest Trails Association to sign the required paperwork to approve the proposed changed route as discussed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
That's the only reason I
Thank you.
wanted to pull up this.
good
Oh,
idea.
yeah, that's good.
Good idea. 10B, organizational updates and employee retention.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have Kevin, maybe?
Sure, yeah, this is just a
Yeah.
kind of an update. I mean, basically, the information in the report is the ask today is, specifically in the Public Works Department, we've kind of been holding off for the last couple of years, waiting to see what the world looks like with the water supply in Northeast, and so especially with us moving forward, it's important that we reevaluate all our processes, because that's like a breathing organism that is not gonna ever turn off, so we really gotta look at a comprehensive review of our department, and consider splitting into streets and parks, and a division or group, streets and parks, and one that's more focused daily on utilities, so we're asking that you authorize that review of staff and to bring forward a plan. That's one of the main focal points of that plan, and then additionally, we would like to look at employee retention and recruitment options to enhance our staff. I believe we're building something very good. We're gonna need more bodies. We need to backfill a couple positions that you've previously approved, and we just gotta continue to build that momentum to deliver that service. So kind of similar to what Public Works or Police went through would be to kind of bring a spreadsheet, bring some ideas from staff, bring an analysis of those ideas and put that forth as part of this exercise. And then that would be coming from Public Works' position, so it would be authorization and more of an update and authorization for us to pursue that. It'd probably take at least a quarter. We want to do it right. We don't want to come back and do it twice, and so it'll be probably a phasing plan to some degree, but it's just more of a request to allow us to pursue that analysis and bring it back to you for any approvals.
Gotcha. Any questions for Kevin?
I have a question.
Go for it.
It's a request. Can we make sure that we have like for surrounding cities, down to the very specifics, and as far as wage gaps? And then Are the surrounding cities all non-union, or are some of the surrounding cities union?
I think it's a mix.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, so like, obviously a union contract is public information. And it's not always easy to get, like, Rogers wages, necessarily, but if you go on Indeed and you look for a job, if you copy the job description of Corcoran and put it in Indeed, you'll find job postings for other cities.
Yep.
And so that helps create a like for like too. When we did police, it was, most police jobs are union, so it's easy to look at union contracts for the cities and counties around you, but,
I can ask some of that too at our Northwest Hennepin League
Yeah.
meeting. Sometimes we'll share that information if one city's wondering on
Yeah.
where the market is for something.
yeah, so
And
like,
that information is public,
Yeah,
so
all of it's
it would be public data, what wages are, what the
yeah.
pieces
yeah.
of it, so we can certainly look at that as we
Maybe if
review it.
Kevin, if we could work on like a list of what exactly I'm asking them for, then I can get that out to the group and probably help get some of that data in.
Yep. I envision a lot of back and forth and updates, and and it's gonna be a process to figure this out, and it'll be a phased approach, because the build-out will be phased, but to be upfront, I do see value personally in moving at least to somebody to help be part of the construction process and learn as they're building. I do think there's an advantage, so I do wanna probably try to onboard someone and not wait 2 years. That might be a plant manager, and we can talk about that, but I do think there's value in being part of the process and learning everything, and making some decisions, if we can do that, so.
Makes
I don't necessarily wanna wait, it's obviously your call, but part of that plan will be, when do we start onboarding someone to help with the construction and helping with some of that stuff, and we don't wanna wait. We
Right.
wanna find the right person, so if we gotta wait it out, we have some lead time there to wait out for the right fit too, so. And wherever that comes, we'll have to evaluate it, but, yeah, it's literally, obviously, you guys are aware it's a big project and it's a big endeavor, so we wanna do it right and continue to build on that success, and, so it's a pivot point for us, and we wanna do it right, so we wanna dig into it and bring everyone along for the ride and factor in everything, so.
Makes sense.
As best as we can. So we'll be seeking input from you. If you have input, if you have questions, feel free to contact me. If you want to have individual discussions about anything related to public works staffing, anything we talk about, we're always open to that.
And maybe touch base with, I know you do all the time, but with Matt on kind of how the process worked
Yep.
with the police
Yeah,
side
he's
of things.
already,
and-
we've engaged on what he did, and he's gonna share all this, and we're gonna
Perfect.
probably mimic a similar thing. It's gonna be different.
Right, but just as a
obviously.
baseline to build off of.
But there'll be job description, update recommendations, we'll get all your, I mean, it's gonna be comprehensive, I mean, we gotta,
Yeah.
we gotta focus on utilities, it's gonna be a priority now. Where, as we grow, we haven't fully accepted all the developments, it was a growing priority, now
Now it's
now we
here.
gotta gear up and we gotta deliver that, expectations are high, and we know that, and then we gotta deliver, and that takes engineering teams, that takes, partners, it takes vendors, IT department will be helping us, so, but we gotta staff up with the right people if we're gonna perform those expectations too, so, all of it goes hand in hand.
Okay. Any other?
I'll make a motion if that's all right.
Sure.
Second.
To authorize staff to assess employee retention and recruitment.
Okay, is that what the
Items.
second was?
Now you can second.
Now he's got to think about it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. No.
Okay, and that is everything.
No,
Nope.
No?
staff reports. I
Oh,
have a
staff
question.
report plan. Oh, sorry, planning project update.
Questions on there?
Yes, just to stay ahead of something that might
Yeah.
raise a stink,
Yeah.
pun intended. There's something about a commercial compost site within a rural residential district.
We don't have a complete application, but we did receive
Part of an application?
part of an application.
Yeah, just, I wanna, I was not an advocate for a compost site, but some people on the council were advocates for a compost site. And just so if anyone comes forward and says, I wanna put a compost site in a neighborhood or anywhere, like, I'm not sure that a compost site would be appropriate in a rural residential area, period. And I would probably fight that pretty hard, because that's more of a light industrial thing rather than, we'll just throw it down some dirt road and have a bazillion trucks go down that
Right.
dirt road every day.
Do we know for sure that they're proceeding with that
We
application? Because I
don't.
feel like
So we have the paperwork, we didn't receive the fee. At this time, we don't currently allow it, so the information I gave them is to, or the direction I gave them is really, they should come in with a concept plan to see if we'd even be interested, because we would have to amend the ordinance and then move forward with the site. So if it's something that we would want to do, they should come get your feedback first, and that.
Yes, but if I want to get it on the table as, without seeing more, I would be very much against putting that kind of facility out in a rural residential area.
And they came to me, and I said exactly the same thing and sent them to Jessica. I said almost the same thing, John, too, of how are we gonna screen it? What are we gonna do? We don't have any of this information, and these couple of guys have things worked out, stuff, and I bring a concept plan to the council. I believe the contract is going to be up in Maple Grove in 2025 or 6. I was part of setting that up when I was in Maple Grove with Lions Nursery and stuff, and everything that's happened around it over there, there's people gonna start complaining of, and they don't,
It stinks pretty bad.
they don't use it well, they don't do it right, and that's what I had mentioned to these folks, and they said, the way we do it would be completely different, there would not be.
There wouldn't be composting things that create
There wouldn't be that
traffic issues and
It's actually in a
smelling
decent spot
problems.
now.
What's that?
Isn't it right off 610 and
Yeah.
by Target?
Yep, but all of the apartments and everything that's going, it'll peel paint off the walls. Football practice, all of the stuff at the high school. If the wind was right, you couldn't hardly stand outside. It was that bad. But the way they described it to me, the grass the clippings that go in, the leaves that are done, how often they're turned over, all of that stuff, that's what creates. And I just said,
There isn't a way to, I'll say there's not really a way to compost and in a way that doesn't create those things. That's a byproduct of compost, so.
well,
I guess
they're
I'll be.
telling me something different. I said, bring it to us.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to it, whether or
Sure,
not we
I
believe
guess,
it or
right.
not is a whole different thing.
Yeah, either way, I think that'd be a 3-4 meeting type decision to even get to, because it's the planning.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Hopefully
to it.
sketch,
A lot of-
planning,
A
and then
lot of pieces.
us and-
The zoning ordinance amendment would be it'd be a big effort to do
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Do you have the map of, oh, here, I'm trying to pull it up on your side.
If-
It's off 19.
It's off of 19 in Strahler, if I remember correctly. Give me just a second.
Just a
PID.
little south of there, I think.
Just a little south of there.
Yeah, it would just, I think it's 19, it abuts 19.
Is it down here?
Sorry, I didn't mean to prolong the,
No, that's,
Oh, good. Good discussion.
I think it was. I remember correctly.
I see it.
It was these potentially, it was potentially two parcels.
Yeah.
I think it was these two.
well, I guess it's not on a dirt road.
Yeah.
No, I told them the dirt road wasn't gonna work. They had to have access, and they told me they had access, they had everything. And I said, well, you got a whole bunch of neighbors around you.
If they piled the compost high enough, they could just bulldoze it over the property, all the stuff on the property south of it.
South the one?
Oh,
That
yeah,
doesn't
that's
look
a-
bad.
Huh?
That one doesn't look.
No, look at the other,
Up on the map.
look at the other. This, I think this is.
I don't wanna judge people's
Oh, yeah.
property online.
Oh, no.
In the meeting. Oh, yeah.
I guess it would have to be 2 parcels south. It's public information. It's been in our packet multiple times. No one's paying
We
attention
received an
anymore.
application, so,
There you go.
or
Maybe we could
partially.
use it as part of our park master plan, build a sledding hill with it, like Medina did.
That's true.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else? Council schedule is, I mean, comparatively,
We do have a few more things that have come in for the 9th, so. We have a potential closed session that we're looking at doing, a few other things on the 9th as well. So, and February 23rd, as of, I think, yesterday, I found out there's 2 concept plans, so we're
for February 23rd, there's 2 concept plans?
Do you have any details on them at all?
I can share them with you.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.